He is the most pitiable child in the orphanage. However, on this day, he received a gift from God, a mother as warm as a rainbow. But when the foster father first saw him, the smile on his face immediately faded. His frail figure and timid gaze were exactly what the foster father disliked most. A single sharp look made Tomas so nervous that he almost couldn't hold his luggage. Due to his wife's face-saving gesture, the foster father still maintained a friendly attitude, reaching out in goodwill, but instead made the child appear even more tense and uneasy. Sure enough, that evening, the husband confided to his wife his dislike for the child. He had hoped his wife would choose a bigger, more masculine boy, but he never expected her to bring back such a timid, frail boy. But his wife provided a very convincing reason for the adoption. She pointed out that Tomas was actually the kindest child in the orphanage. Because just the day before, this child had perfectly passed a test of human nature. The director placed a dove in a room with the children to observe their reactions. The other children were busy playing and fooling around, unaware that the dove was struggling painfully by the window. Only Tomas gently pushed open the window and released the dove back into the sky. But this act of kindness made him a target of bullying. They broke his crayons, discarded his drawings, and even threatened him, saying that if he dared to do it again, they would throw him out of the window. No one came to comfort Tomas. Only the increasingly harsh laughter of other boys echoed around him. But Tomas did not know that his act of kindness, which was misunderstood, had already been seen by a mysterious person outside the window. This person was Mare. Although Mare knew that her husband might find it difficult to accept the child at first, she firmly believed that one day, her husband would understand her good intentions. And so, Mare took Tomas home. It was a small white house facing the sea, surrounded by delicate white flowers. The interior was decorated with bright colors, immediately catching Tomas's attention. What pleased him even more was that he had his own little room, red bed sheets, a yellow raincoat, a blue cabinet, and pajamas sewn by Mare herself. Dinner was fragrant stew, and before bed, there was a warm cup of goat milk. All these made Tomas feel an unprecedented warmth. Although Mare had never been a mother, she was like a loving and experienced mother. That day, she taught Tomas how to collect eggs from a hen, and this novel and interesting method made Tomas rarely smile. But when he turned around, Tomas was startled by his serious-looking foster father, and the egg in his hand accidentally slipped to the ground. Mare did not scold him, but gently comforted him. She knew that only by giving Tomas enough love could he gradually become brave. She also understood that children need the support of parents to have the courage to try. In the evening, suddenly, it started to rain heavily. Tomas stood in front of a puddle, gently testing with his foot, cautiously probing again and again. He wanted to splash and play in the water, but was worried about being scolded by his foster parents. Sure enough, Mare approached with a serious expression. The timid Tomas was already prepared for a scolding, but in the next moment, Mare was the first to step into the puddle. Then, the two of them, like two bright yellow little flowers, blossomed freely in the drizzle. Tomas's previously tense heart gradually relaxed. He had never felt so at ease. However, this brief relaxation was soon broken by Alec's arrival. Alec's face was stern, silent, and sensitive. Tomas immediately fell silent, as if struck by a cold wind. He lowered his head and didn't dare step inside the house. Seeing this, Mare softly comforted him, saying that although Alec appeared serious on the outside, he harbored warmth inside, and Tomas would understand one day. That night, Mare and her husband sat around the fireplace, talking. She knew well the tension between her husband and Tomas, and hoped her husband would give Tomas more time to adapt. However, Alec openly expressed his dissatisfaction with Tomas. Unaware of this, Tomas accidentally overheard their conversation. He could only curl up under the quilt, silently listening to subtle grievances in the darkness. Since then, whenever Tomas saw Alec, he would hide like a mouse encountering a cat. One day, Tomas saw a bright rainbow in the sky and was excited to tell Mare. But as he entered the living room and saw Alec's figure, he became so nervous that he couldn't speak, finally struggling to say the word rainbow. Tomas's hesitant manner made Alec even more disappointed in him. After breakfast, Alec prepared to go out to sea to fish, and Mare hoped he would take Tomas along. However, upon learning this, Tomas, filled with fear, hid in the stable and refused to come out no matter what. Mare had no choice but to let Alec leave first, and she hummed a cheerful nursery rhyme as she led Tomas to the seaside. The two sat side by side on the sunlit golden beach, and seeing Tomas looking dejected, Mare taught him to imitate the call of a seal. One after another, seal heads appeared on the water surface, and Tomas found it incredibly fascinating. Mare encouraged him to try as well, but after several unsuccessful attempts, Tomas lost confidence and was unwilling to continue. Mare was patient and gentle, encouraging Tomas to try once more, just one more time. She patiently corrected his pronunciation again and again. Finally, through their joint effort, a cute seal appeared. Mare told Tomas that seals are special messengers, capable of carrying his words to the loved ones he misses. Tomas quietly asked the seal to pass on a message to his grandmother. He liked it here. Day after day, Mare gently guided Tomas. She patiently waited for Tomas to gradually accept Alec, and of course, not just Alec, but everything in this unfamiliar environment. Whenever the neighbors' siblings came to play, the shy Tomas would still manage to hide. His experiences of being bullied in the orphanage made him wary of children his age. But with Mare's persistent and gentle encouragement, Tomas finally gathered the courage to take the first step in making friends, accepting invitations from his little companions to go out and play together. Before leaving, the cautious Tomas secretly combed his hair to look like an adult, so he wouldn't seem so childish among the others. The siblings first took him to see the legendary giant statue transformed by Fingal, then to the secret base under King Fingal's castle, a dark, cold seaside cave, chilling and crawling with strange bugs, making Tomas nervous with every step. Suddenly, a bat swooped toward him, and Tomas ran away in fright. The boy accompanying him thought he was cowardly, but the girl found him very adorable. At the start of the new semester, Tomas stood on the podium to introduce himself. Looking at the unfamiliar faces below, he couldn't help but recall the teasing at the orphanage, and he fell silent with nervousness. A kind-hearted little girl helped him out, suggesting he talk about chocolate shops in big cities. However, Tomas seriously said that while chocolate shops in big cities are indeed good, this island is more beautiful. Here, there are tall ships, adorable seals, flocks of sheep, and towering giant statues and King Fingal's castle, all things that can't be seen in big cities. His sincere sharing won the affection of his classmates, and the girls eagerly raised their hands, hoping to sit at his desk. For the first time, Tomas felt such warm acceptance, and a strange warmth welled up in his heart. After school, he hurried home, eager to tell Mare about the fun school stories. But when he opened the door, he saw a staff member from the adoption agency. She was there to assess whether Tomas was suitable to continue living there, and she had the authority to terminate the adoption at any time. Tomas firmly expressed his desire to stay, but the other person reminded him that it wasn't that simple. Both adoptive parents had to sign and agree for him to officially become part of the family. Mare had already signed, but Alec had yet to do so. Although Mare explained that Alec was delayed due to being busy, Tomas couldn't hide his disappointment and walked alone to the seaside to clear his mind. Mare, worried, followed him. At this moment, Tomas finally opened his heart to her. When he first saw Mare, he secretly hoped she could become his mother. Mare, emotionally moved, asked Tomas why he didn't call her Mom, and frankly admitted that she loved that title very much. Tomas gazed at her and softly called out, Mom. From that moment on, like a rootless tree finally finding its soil, Tomas gradually became brave and cheerful. He was no longer afraid of crabs, dared to walk into deep mountain caves again, and even began to try to get along slowly with Alec, whom he once feared. To create more opportunities for Alec and Tomas to spend time together, Mare decided to go to town alone to buy supplies and arranged for Tomas to go to the seaside with Alec to repair the crab traps. The two of them found a seal pup on the beach. Alec explained to Tomas that this little seal was separated from its mother and, lacking maternal care, would probably starve to death soon. Kind-hearted Tomas couldn't bear to see the seal pup hungry and wanted to feed it himself. Alec reminded him that feeding a seal is not a one-day task and requires long-term persistence. However, Tomas firmly said he could do it. Faced with that pure kindness, Alec let Tomas fetch some small fish to feed the seal pup. That afternoon, the two completed their first cooperation, and their relationship finally made progress. In the following days, Tomas kept his promise, came to feed the seal every day, and would confide his thoughts to it. On Tomas's birthday, Mare gave him a fishing rod. She knew Tomas had been feeding the seal with his own food, and with the fishing rod, he could fish for the seal himself. Alec also took the opportunity to promise that the next day he would take him out to sea and teach him how to fish. The next day, Tomas was full of anticipation. However, on the way to the seaside, Alec was stopped by a nearby friend who invited him for a drink. Alec told Tomas to wait at the seaside and promised he would be back soon. Unexpectedly, Alec completely forgot the previous promise in the joy of gathering with friends. Tomas waited from early morning until sunset. The seal pup was already hungry and crying, but Alec never returned. Just as Tomas felt disappointed and sad, Mare came over. Not wanting to see Tomas discouraged, she rowed out to sea with him. On the blue sea surface, Tomas finally asked the deeply hidden question in his heart. Why did his mother choose him? Mare gently replied that she thought it was because they chose each other. It turned out that Mare had grown up in an orphanage and was not adopted until she was 16. Years of loneliness made her deeply understand Tomas's inner fears and loneliness. When Tomas expressed his longing for his grandmother but had difficulty recalling her face, Mare patiently taught him how to gradually sketch her image in his mind. Under Mare's guidance, Tomas finally succeeded in recalling his grandmother's image. Then, Mare gently closed her eyes and taught Tomas how to imagine the shape of a rainbow. At that moment, a rainbow appeared at the junction of sea and sky. Faced with this colorful and magnificent scene, Tomas couldn't help but exclaim sincerely, "It's so beautiful." Mare told Tomas that in the future, if there is a chance, she would take him into the rainbow, where the scenery would be even more enchanting. The two made a promise. Behind this promise lay Mare's selfless and profound love, which Tomas could not fully understand at that time. After dinner, Mare intentionally let Tomas leave, then blamed her husband Alec for breaking his promise. However, Alec was indifferent and instead blamed Mare for insisting on going to sea despite her weak health. This led to a dispute between them. In fact, Alec's worries were also out of love for Mare. It turned out that Mare had a congenital heart disease and was already in poor health. Her recent trip alone to the city exhausted her, and this four-sea voyage worsened her condition. However, Tomas knew nothing about Mare's health and still happily went to and from school every day. One day after school, Tomas suddenly heard cries for help. Turns out a mischievous neighbor boy had climbed the giant statue to steal bird eggs and was discovered by the bird mother. Under the continuous attack of the bird mother, the boy was panicked and could not find a way down. Seeing this, Tomas immediately climbed the statue, holding the boy's foot with his hand, and carefully placed him in a hollow. With Tomas's help, the boy finally escaped danger. Then, Tomas excitedly ran home, wanting to tell Mare about his brave experience, but found the doctor and neighbors at home. Only then did he learn that his mother's condition had worsened due to the sea voyage, and she had to be hospitalized. Tomas felt deeply guilty. He did not want to be separated from his mother. To prevent him from worrying, Mare took out a red handkerchief, wrapping her smile and love inside, and solemnly handed it to Tomas, telling him that whenever he missed his mother, he should open the handkerchief and look inside. Thus, Alec and Mare went to the hospital, while Tomas was temporarily placed in the neighbor's house. Watching the close-knit family of the neighbors, Tomas seemed to feel the familiar loneliness of his orphanage days again. That night, he had a terrible nightmare. In the dream, thunder and lightning roared, the earth trembled, and he lost his balance and fell. Yet he still persisted in praying for his mother, begging the giant statue to bless his mother's quick recovery. It shows how much Tomas loved his mother, as radiant as a rainbow. Finally, the neighbors brought good news. In a few days, Tomas would be able to visit his mother in the hospital. He wanted to prepare a gift for her, and coincidentally, a gypsy which came to the island that day. He liked a colorful tablecloth, but because he had no money, he exchanged it with his grandmother's only keepsake. Tomas believed that Grandma in heaven would understand, and his mother would surely like this gesture. Just as he thought everything was gradually improving, reality revealed its cruel side again. A few days later, Tomas finally entered the hospital. Here, it seemed even colder than the island. Tomas quietly came to his mother's bedside. Mare, upon seeing him, forced a faint smile, gently stroked his cheek, and asked if he had already felt the many beautiful colors of this world. After Tomas nodded in response, Mare finally closed her eyes peacefully. However, before Tomas could take out the gift, he was hurriedly pulled out of the ward by the adults. In the corridor, the faint sound of the priest praying could be heard. Tomas immediately understood everything and rushed back into the ward regardless of everything. His world was completely dark at that moment. His mother was lying quietly there, unresponsive, only her still warm hand remaining. as if still conveying the last bit of love. Back at home, the only thing that accompanied him was a handkerchief, silently bearing his sadness in the quiet late night. The next day, the entire island was shrouded in a hazy fog. Tomas watched the funeral procession from afar, still unable to believe that his mother's rainbow had vanished without a trace right before his eyes. Even the bright sun was obscured by clouds, and the once colorful little home had also lost its luster. Alec was also deeply affected, immersed in sadness and depression all day long. Every day, Tomas would go to talk to the little seal. Watching the waves repeatedly crash against the beach, he also began to pray for the little seal, hoping its mother would return to it soon. However, Tomas himself was about to be enveloped by even deeper gloom. The neighbor's siblings heard that the adoption agency was coming soon. If Alec did not sign the adoption papers, Tomas would be sent back to the orphanage. Seeing that Tomas was very sad, the little girl comforted him, saying perhaps Alec thought Tomas would have a better life staying in the city. But Tomas firmly stated that this was his home. He needed Alec, and Alec also needed him. Perhaps Mare had already sensed that her days were numbered, which is why she chose to leave Tomas as a gift for her husband. She knew well that Tomas was kind-hearted and would gradually dispel the heavy shadows in Alec's heart. Thinking of this, Tomas decided to cheer up. He took on all the household chores himself, fetching water, watering the plants, feeding the sheepdog. Finally, he also cooked a pot of Alec's favorite stew according to the method Mare had once taught him. He thought this familiar taste might bring some comfort to Alec, but instead, it pierced Alec's heart even more. His longing for his wife surged like a tide, and he left the dining table without eating a bite. But Tomas was not discouraged. He understood that such grief needed time to heal slowly. From that day on, he actively took on more household chores every day, striving to keep the house that had lost its lady in a semblance of normalcy. Until one evening, when Tomas returned from school, he found that all traces of his mother had disappeared from the house. Alec explained that Mare was no longer there. Angrily, Tomas slammed the door and left. He could not understand why Alec did this. What shocked him even more was that Alec actually piled up all of Mare's belongings and set them on fire. Tomas rushed forward to try to stop him, but was pushed away by Alec and fell to the ground. The long-suppressed emotions finally erupted, and Tomas, crying uncontrollably, said it was because Alec went drinking that Mare, who was ill, accompanied him to see. After speaking, Tomas ran sadly to the neighbor's house. The neighbor softly comforted Tomas, saying that when people are overly sad, they often impulsively burn all memories. The neighbor then reminded Tomas he had only been with Mare for a few years, but Alec's love for her lasted longer than Tomas's age. That night was long and quiet, and Tomas, holding that handkerchief, fell into a deep sleep in a beautiful dream. But Alec stayed awake all night. He wanted to apologize to Tomas many times, but ultimately could not knock on that door or speak his remorse. On the way home from school the next day, Tomas met the investigator again. Feeling uneasy, he hurried back home. Sure enough, Alec still had not signed the adoption papers. Tomas found his little seal again, intending to ask it to deliver a message to his mother. He didn't know what to do and hoped his mother could give him guidance. Just then, Tomas looked up and saw a brilliant rainbow suddenly appear before him, with star-like glimmers floating around him. He excitedly stood in the rainbow light, as if stepping onto a sea of rainbows, with dreamy colors swirling around him. Tomas understood that this was his mother fulfilling her promise. That night, Tomas returned under the cover of darkness, while Alec was still heavily drunk. But this time, Tomas knew exactly what to do. He gave Alec the handkerchief left by his mother, hoping that this gift, carrying his mother's smile, could help him emerge from his inner gloom. That night, Alec held the handkerchief, feeling the warmth of Mare's residual presence, and for the first time in a long while, fell into a peaceful sleep. The next morning, warm sunlight bathed the sea and also entered Alec's heart. He decided to prepare breakfast for Tomas, wanting to express his desire to keep the boy through this simple yet sincere act. If Tomas didn't mind his cooking, perhaps he could stay. However, when he knocked on the door for a long time without response, an ominous premonition arose in his mind. He pushed open the door and saw that Tomas's room was empty. Turns out, Tomas had already packed his belongings and was ready to leave this house full of memories. But before leaving, Tomas was determined to help that poor little seal return to the sea and find its lost mother. Noticing something was wrong, Alec hurried outside to look for him and saw Tomas sailing a small boat toward the sea. But just then, the clear sky suddenly darkened with clouds, and the waves roared fiercely, soon capsizing the small boat. Staring at Tomas being engulfed by the angry waves, Alec frantically shouted Tomas's name. Only then did he realize that Tomas had long been deeply imprinted in his heart, intertwined with Mare's memories. He could no longer lose this child. Along the coastline, he searched desperately, and just when he almost despaired, thinking Tomas had drowned in the sea, he found Tomas lying on the beach behind a reef. Tomas slowly regained consciousness. It turned out that at the moment he fell into the sea, the seal on the shore quickly leapt into the water, working together to drag him back to the coast. Tomas firmly believed that his mother had saved him, that it was his mother who had sent the seal to help. At this moment, they were filled with reverence and cherishing for life, and they became more aware of the unbreakable emotional bond between them. They were no longer just adoptive father and son, but irreplaceable parts of each other's lives. Back home, Alex suddenly noticed that the room's tone was too dull, lacking bright colors. Hearing this, Tomas took out the tablecloth originally prepared for his mother, and the two of them joined hands to lay it on the table. But Tomas was still uneasy, worried he might be sent away, so he asked Alec if he had already signed the documents. Unexpectedly, Alex said that he would never sign without Tomas's consent. Then, Alex softly asked Tomas if he was willing to return to the orphanage. Tomas resolutely refused to go back to the orphanage. Hearing Tomas's firm answer, Alex solemnly signed his name on the adoption papers. At this moment, the father and son finally truly accepted each other, becoming family who rely on each other for life. Later, one day, neighbors, a brother and sister, came to invite Tomas to play outside, and Tomas took the initiative to ask Alec for permission. After getting approval, they had breakfast together, then went to the bright seaside. At this time, the little seal also came with its family, and Tomas received that warm, long-awaited paternal love. He finally had his own warm little home in this colorful world.